So we're going to talk about the Power Platform, and I'm wondering if you, if anyone recognizes the logo on the right. It's actually from a Power Platform Better Together T-shirt contest, and there was a contest, I believe, 3 years ago, and the winner was announced at the Business Applications Summit, and this was the winning logo, obviously. And it was about integrating all the Power Platform products, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to create an interactive Power BI dashboard with a Power App connected together with a flow, so Power Automate, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So let's start with this link for feedback. If you have any feedback for me on the topic on speaking, please leave it here. I'll be showing the link in the end also. And I also have another link for you, so bit.ly/appsflowpowerbi, because I want to know a little bit about you, who you are and what your background is. If you would be so kind to go to that link or scan the QR code, you end up at a little form with 4 questions about you, and I will come back to those answers in a minute. If you fill in your answers, then they will pop up in this Power BI dashboard, and I will go through them in a second. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Nicky van Voenhoven. I'm based in the Netherlands, 40 years old, and I have 3 kids, 3 young kids, and a lovely wife. And I just started working at PowerDops. It's a small consultancy company, and I'm the unit lead Power BI there. So all Power BI focused at Power BI consultancy, and also getting the word out. So speaking at conferences, blogging, and that sort of thing. And that's also what I love. So being in the community, active online in one blog, also the Power BI community, and I've been awarded 2 times Data Platform MVP now. And in my spare time, I like to go running a lot, a little bit of cycling also, and I did a triathlon once. So that's things I like to do when I'm not doing something with Power BI, of course. So if you have any questions, then please let me know, and I will continue now to the who are you part. So the bit.ly/appsflowpowerbi. Let me see if anyone has already answered any questions. Okay, look, there we are. So we have a few answers already, mostly Power BI developers, data engineers. That's good to see. Thanks for answering. And if I look at the experience, there's some experience in Power Apps, Power BI mostly, of course. That's okay, and not that much in integration. Okay, that's cool. So that's what we're here about. So let's have a look. If you want to know how I created this setup, so with the form and flow and Power BI, you can have a look at my blog. It's the link on the left bottom, and it's quite similar to the setup I'm showing today, but then with Microsoft Forms and not with Power Apps. So, I'm sorry, first of all here. What I first like to do is show you the final solution that I'm going to work towards. So we're seeing a Power BI dashboard here in the service, and on the left there's a Power Apps visual, and on the right Power BI report, or a Power BI tile showing a Power BI visual, I should say. And on the left I can enter values in my Power App, and they will show up right away in my Power BI report. And the important part here is also that it's a Power BI dashboard, and I will show you why that's needed later. So I already talked about the Power Platform and how it is better together. It's not something I've come up with, but it's the slogan that that's put out. And well, it's about working with the 3 or 4 Power Platform products. I'm using Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate today, but you can come up with all sorts of combination of those four. And I will also show some other use cases. I'm building it now for using a Power App to populate a dashboard in real time. But you can also come up with other use cases, and I will show a few of them later on after my demos. So the things I'm going to do today. Firstly, I'm going to create a Power BI streaming dataset where I can enter some data. I'm going to create a flow in Power Automate, also a Power App to enter the data. Then I'm going to create a Power BI report of that streaming dataset. And the last step is important. I'm going to create a dashboard. So a Power BI dashboard from tiles for my report. And if you look a little bit more into detail, it's going to be an instant flow with a trigger of a button, so a button in Power Apps. I'm going to create a Canvas app in Power Apps. And the dashboard is important because that creates the live part of the solution. You have to refresh the page, the visual every time you enter values in a Power BI report, and with the dashboard, that's not the case. So let's head into the demos. I also have a walkthrough of this solution. So if you want to go back to any of the steps, then feel free to visit those links. They will also be in the resources later, so you can check them in the end of the slides. So let's get out of this. We even have more answers coming in, so that's good. All from Europe. It's not very surprising, I think, for the conference there. Firstly, let me go to Power BI, because the first thing I'm going to do is create a Power BI streaming dataset. So I'm using my workspace. You can use any workspace you want for that. I'm going to create a streaming dataset. I'm using the API version here. That will do just fine. Giving it a name. Call it SQL Bits Demo, and then I can create my fields for the streaming dataset. So I'm using a name field of type text. There are actually 3 different data types that you can use: text, number, and datetime for a streaming dataset. So it's a little bit limited. I also want to enter a score. And my score will actually be a number. And I'm not using this in my app itself, but I'm also creating a datetime field on which I can, for example, filter values in my report later on. So if I'm testing it out and I also only want to show the production values, for example, so don't show any test values, then I can filter on the date and datetime, for example. Important switch is this one, historic data analysis. If you don't switch it on, then it will be a streaming data set, but then it will lose its data after, I believe, 30 seconds or 1 minute. And I want to stay or to keep the data in that data set. So I'm switching it on, and then it will be in the data set until I delete it again. So you can either delete it by switching this off again and then saving it. That will delete the data. That's what I usually do. So if I go back here and edit it, if I now switch it off, save it, and then switch it back on again, then it's also emptied. So that's one way to empty the data set. So first step is done. I have my streaming data set. Next, I'm going to Power Automate, and there I'm going to create a flow. Just waiting on the page to pop up. You can pick all sorts of templates that you can use. So regular ones that are used are shown here, but you can also create just an instant cloud flow yourself. Let's give it the same name for now. And with that, with an instant cloud flow, you have to select a trigger. So when will the flow trigger to run? And in this example, I'm going to use Power Apps because my Power App will trigger the flow. Let's have a look. After that, I want to get the data from my Power App into Power BI. So I'm selecting Power BI, and I want to add rows to a dataset. So that's all I need for now. And I just have to select the dataset I just created. So it's in my workspace. The dataset is called SQL demo, and the table is called real-time data. That's just the name, the default name that's given to a streaming dataset. So it's nothing you can change right now. And after waiting for a few seconds, then the fields of my streaming dataset I just created will show here. And if I now click in the name field of my flow, then a dynamic content pop-up shows where I can click on this button asking Power Apps. And this will actually create a parameter inside my flow that I can use later on in Power Apps. So that's what I'm going to do. And it creates a add rows to dataset underscore name, so accompanied with the name that's used there. I also want to do the same for score. You just have to click see more once to get this asking Power Apps back. And then we have two parameters, so name and score, so that's good. And the last thing, daytime, I just want to, every time I enter values, I just want to add the current date and time. So I can do that with entering expression of UTC now. So that's actually everything I need right now in my flow. I'm going to save it. SQL demo should be good. And after saving it, I can already test it right here. So because it's not connected to my Power App yet, I only connected it to Power BI, but I can test it here. So I will test it manually. Once I need to connect to Power BI, that's cool. And then I can enter values for my two parameters. So name, just entering my own name and giving myself 10 points for what it means, and run my flow. And then we can actually see the result of that run. Oh, it actually started successfully, so that's one step. And let's go back. In the overview of your flow, you can see some details, also the connections that you use. And over here, we have the run history. And it actually succeeded, it said. So that's good. If you click on the date and time part here, you can actually go into the details of that flow. And you can check what happened. So this trigger actually technically didn't fire, but because I tested it here in the service. But add rows to a dataset did fire, and it added Nikki and the score of 10 as I inputted that in the test. And it also entered the date and time, so that's actually your time, I think, 12:20. So that's good. It's 1 hour later over here. And so, according to flow, it should be the row should be in my Power BI dataset, right? So let's have a look in Power BI Desktop. I'm going to suggest an empty Power BI Desktop. I'm going to connect to my Power BI dataset. And there we have SQL demo. I just created it a few minutes ago. Let's create a connection. And then I will have a live connection to that streaming dataset, as is mentioned here. So let's just get everything in. Simple table. I should see one row with Nikki and 10 points. Okay, so that's good. I'll make this a little bit bigger. A little bit more readable. Okay, so my flow is working. It's connected to my Power BI streaming dataset, and I can get the data into my report. So that's the first step. Now let's go to my Power App. because that's the thing I want to enter the data eventually. So I'm moving over to Power Apps. Also here you can create Power Apps from templates or use different connections and start from that. But I'm just using a blank app for now. I'm using a Canvas app, as I mentioned. Name Sequelbits demo. Let me use a tablet one, because then I can adjust the size of the canvas a little bit more. It's just setting up some things, that's fine. And there we are. So this is my blank Power App. Let me first go into some settings. Yeah, let's save it while we're here. Yeah, let's go into settings and let's see what we have here. So, for example, we can edit an icon or maybe add an image to it. For example, I can go to Sequelbits and select one of the nice images here. And maybe you should get a different background, this one. And of course get a description and that sort of things. I can also adjust the orientation and also the size. So I'm going to set a custom size because I want a little bit smaller canvas. Yes. And let's make it 500 each. Okay. That's it for now. Okay. So let's close that. I still haven't done anything on my app itself. So the first thing I want to do is add some text inputs and a button. So with that, I'm starting with a text input that I want to put my name in. And the default text I'm going to clear for now. And I'm going to use the hint text. I like that a lot because it shows up here, but if I now click it, the hint text disappears. So that's different than the default text. It stays in my text input if I click it. So I have to delete it first and then enter something else. So that's why I prefer the name field. Let's bump up the font size a little bit. 20, that should be good. And also best practice, give your artifacts the proper names. So this is my first text input. I'm just going to copy this one. Score, yes. And of course, change the hint text. Score also. So these are my two fields, and the next thing I need is a button to click, of course, and to save my values eventually to my Power Streaming dataset. So I'm going to enter the text save here. That's all I need, and that's it for now. Let me check real quick. Yeah, so when I'm clicking now, also when I'm running it, there's nothing connected yet to the button. So what I want to do is click on Action and then Power Automate, and then I can connect my flow that is already visible here. So my Sequelbits demo Power Automate flow. I can connect that to this button. And what it then does is the onSelect property of my button. So when I select the button, when I click it, this code will be run, and it's actually the run the run formula of my flow. And as you see over here, it adds the two parameters for my flow to my button. So the add rows to dataset name and score. So I want to add the values of my text inputs in that same order into this formula bar. So the first thing I need to do is add a name. So the name field and the text property. So name of text. And the next is a score, and it's the same, it's score.text. And I believe a while ago, about a year ago, you had to convert this one to a number. So you can do that with value. And a few months back, they changed that, I think, and now it's no longer needed to change the text value to a number. If it's just entered as a numeric value, then it will automatically convert. Otherwise, you could do it with value and then have it sent as a number, and it changes it here in Power Apps. So that's also possible. And that is actually the steps I want to take for now. There are a few steps more, but I am able to run this app right now. So I can run it, click on name, let's give myself more points, always good. I click save, then you will see a little running icon on the top here if you look closely. If I'm correct. Could be real fast right now. Let's check if it's already here. Let's refresh my Power BI desktop. And it's already there. So it was super fast this time. Usually I see it running for a few seconds or 5 seconds maybe. But now I didn't even see it, so that's good. So it's 12:29 and 1 point, so that's good. So this works now. The only thing is, I don't get any confirmation when I click the save button. And also the values are still here. So if I now want to enter another name, let's say Ben, and give Ben 10 points, and click save, then the button disappeared real quickly. So I know I clicked it, but if I click it again, then yeah, nothing happens. So now I entered Ben twice. So it would be good to have a little confirmation there. So let's sort it here. Yeah. So as I mentioned, first thing I would like to do, if I click this save button, I want to clear those text inputs. And that's also something I do in the onSelect property. I can just enter a new row here with Shift Enter, and then call the reset function on my two text inputs. So on the name, and reset my score. And if I do that and run it again, yeah. Of course, now I didn't click the button yet, so that's then 1 point again. Click save, and then it disappears, and it displays the hint text again. So now my name and score again. But I still really have no visual confirmation that I clicked the save button, right? So that's something I want to add also. This now works. If I click Mickey or type Mickey and 5 points, save, then the values actually disappear. So I know I clicked the button, but it would be good to have some sort of visual confirmation, right? That I know I clicked the button. So I can do that with, for example, inserting a label over here, and make the label show up if I click the button, and then make it disappear again if I enter a new value, for example. So let's have this label over here. Let's give it the text of value saved. Let's center that for a second. My font size there, 15. And let's give it a little bit of color. Let's do it like this. That's clearly visible. Okay. And well, as you see now, the label just is displayed on the canvas, and I actually want it to be displayed when it's when the button is clicked. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to the property. Oh, it's called visible. I thought it was invisible. So visible is now called true. And I'm actually going to introduce the concept of variables here. And because I'm going to create a global variable, I'm going to prefix it with GV. You can just create a variable on the spot. And I'm going to call it show label. So this is my variable. And while I'm doing this, you can already see that the text disappeared. I'll enter. Let's see. Yeah, right. Because the default value of a variable is false, so that's why it is there. And for my button, it's still giving an error message, but that will disappear in a minute. And when I click this this button, I want to set the value of my variable. So that's what you do with the set function. You define a variable. So my global variable I want to give that the value of true. Should be it. So whenever I click the button, this code will run, so it will save the values, it will reset those text inputs, and it will also show my label, or at least set the variable to true. And because I assigned that variable to the label, it will show my variable. And now the error message is also gone. So let's have a look. It's still there. Yeah, right. So that's good. Let's run it again and see what it does now. Let's go to Mark for a second. I think you want some points. And there we are. So when I click the button, values disappear, and also my value saved is here. But there's one tiny thing I'd like to improve, because if I now click one of my text inputs again, and also if I enter new values, so let's give Mark another point, then this label is still here, right? So if I click it again, then the label will still be there. So I'm still not sure if it's 100% right. So there's one thing I can do. Go to my text input, and with the onSelect function here. So whenever I select my one of my two text inputs, I can set the variable again to false. So the variable show label. It was true after I click the button, and now when I click any of those fields, I want to disable it again, so it makes the label disappear. So this is for the name one, and let's also do it for the score. Going to the onSelect property, and then giving the false to show label. So running it again, then some more points, 5. So my values are saved. Clicking here will make the label disappear. Let's try again. And if I click there, it also works. Okay, so that's cool. So for now, I'm pretty good. I could add maybe, let's do a little background image here. Let's get elf. Put it a little bit over here. Yeah. I should probably choose another background color for this one. That's the border. This one. That's not good. Let's make it dark blue. So you could bit color. Okay, and now I just have to see where the label is. That's there. Okay, and let's put that underneath. That's aligns better. Okay, so so for now my Power App is finished as it is, and let's save this and also publish this so I can use it in other places. Okay, this one's done, and now I want to go to my Power BI report and connect this Power App to that report, right? So I'm going to Power BI. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's delete the date time for now. And there are all the points. So they're all added up. Let's create a cluster column chart for now. And to the left of here, I want to add my Power App, right? So I'm using the Power App visual. It's native in Power BI at this time. So when adding the Power App visual, it gives you a nice how to get started. So step one, select a field from the data set. So I have to select, when I have this Power App selected, select the data set fields that I want to use in my Power App. So I'm using name and score, and it enters the, yeah, test is working. And I'm adding my name and score to the Power Apps data, so it's connected. And then it gives me a different field, so I can either choose an existing app or create a new one. Well, obviously, I'm going to choose my app that I just created. And we see the app icon showing up here, SQLBits demo. Clicking this one, and before I click add, I'm just going to close this one for a second. Otherwise, I'll get a pop-up later on. So if I now add it to my Power BI report, the last thing I or Power Apps need to do is create a Power BI integration item into my Power App. So that's what it's going to do right now. So it's going to Power App, load it up, and then on the left you will see next to the other artifacts that are already there, it will go to create a Power BI integration item. So that's this one. And this makes sure that my data in Power Apps can talk to my data in Power BI. So this is now it. It's already saved, so that's good. That's all that needed to be done here. So I'm going back to Power BI Desktop. And this is my Power App now. So if I, let's see, mark is on the bottom, just mark some more points. And click save. The values are saved. Not the best accessibility colors, I think, but let's leave it for now. The thing is now, I click save, but nothing happened, right? So that's because it's Power BI Desktop. I have to refresh it here. And then I will see the changes. So that's why I'm going to use this in the service right now and into a dashboard. The thing I'd like to add maybe is what you can do is, because the values have the same, the names have the same colors now. So what you can do is choose name and drop this in the legend. And then the names will have different colors, also names that you add later. And that with, that's a little bit much, 16 points. Refresh, it will automatically give a new color to a net, depending on the ordering also. And just an example, I now use the cluster column chart. Let me show you what happens if I choose the check column, the stacked column chart. Sorry, it actually gives me a nicer bars because the legend is now gone. Let's leave that for a second. Let's delete the legend. If you have no legend, then they are actually the same for this type of visual and data. But if I add this one to the legend, you will see that the bars stay thick. So I still have thick bars. And if I connect this one to the legend, then my bars will become quite small. So that's why I always, and maybe you can adjust that also, but just by default, it uses thick bars here. So I like that more. So that's why I'm using this one. And I'm actually done right now in Power BI Desktop. So let's publish this and save it to my workspace, that's okay. And open it in the service. So it's rendering the Power Apps. That's cool. And as I said, I still want to pin this one to a dashboard. Pin it. Yeah, let's go to the dashboard quick. Okay, let's go back and pin this one also. Check its demo. And so what I now have is my report visual and the Power App itself. And I can then enter values. Because I'm in my dashboard now, it will refresh automatically. Let's give myself over 5 points. And there we are. In a few seconds, it just updates. And a few things. You can also add negative values. For example, if you made a mistake, or you can add negative values nonetheless, if you choose so. I have 17 points now. So what happens if I deduct 17 points for myself right now? You might think it disappears. Well, not totally, because my name is still in the dataset. It just has 0 points. So with that, you can't delete the data from the dataset. You can choose to not show it. For example, by using a filter over here. So using a filter on the visual to only display if the score is over or below 0. So don't show it if it's 0, for example. That's one thing. You can also create a page level filter, for example, not showing it if it's 0. That's a possibility. So only showing values that are well positive or negative and not 0. That's one thing to do. Let me check if I did everything here. I think so. Yeah, so these are all the points I wanted to show you here. And of course, you can keep adding names and points, and it just works. It also works on your phone. If you want to take this on your phone or tablet, just open up the Power BI service and connect from there. You have to open the dashboard then if you want to refresh it automatically. You could also open the Power App itself on your phone and then enter the values there and show the report visual on screen, for example. That's also a possibility. So that concludes the demos. Let's go over a few slides for a few minutes. As I mentioned, you can enter values smaller than 0. So you just deduct the values. You can't really delete, at least not from here, from the dataset. But if you want to hide the values that are 0, for example, so names that don't have values or other possibilities, that's possible. One thing to keep in mind is it's called the data loss prevention policy. That is something that's connected to the Power Platform Admin Center. It governs the connectors that are used in your Power Platform environments. And as you see over here, we have you can assign connectors to 3 buckets. So the business, non-business, and the blocked bucket. And you can only use connectors that are in the same bucket. So for example, today I used in the flow, I used the Power Apps and the Power BI connector. So those are both in my business bucket. So that's why I can use them together. If I decide to put the Power BI connector in the non-business bucket, then I cannot create solutions using those two connectors together. And I will get a warning or even an error when I create that flow. And it's saying your data loss prevention policy is preventing you from using this flow, and it will be disabled. And contact your administrator if you want to enable it. So one thing to keep in mind is where are your connectors in those buckets, and what do you want to use together? You can change it, but you just have to be aware that, for example, if you have the Twitter connector, if you put data on Twitter, then obviously it's out in public. So yeah, you might not want to combine Teams or SharePoint connectors with Twitter. So that's one thing to keep in mind with these policies. And of course, there's also licensing involved. For Power BI, I now just use my workspace. So there's no, in principle, there's no license needed. For Power Apps and Power Automate, in the example I used, there's also no license used, but because I use the standard connectors. And more of those standard connectors are, for example, other Power Platform products, but also SharePoint, Teams, Excel Online. So quite some connectors, but there are also connectors that are premium. For example, mostly the Azure connectors, so Data Lake, DevOps, but also SQL databases, and SQL Server also on-premises or in Azure. So if you want to, for example, write data to a database with Power Apps, that is possible, but then you need a premium connector. So you need to license your Power App for a premium connector. So that's one thing to keep in mind. There's a nice overview of what are my premium connectors and what are standard connectors. So you can check in advance of what you need for licensing. And I was wondering if you have any other examples of integrations, Power Apps and Power BI. If not, then I can show you a few. For example, you can use writeback, as I mentioned just now. You can use Power Apps to write data back to a database and then consume the data back into your Power BI report, for example, for adding comments or adding feedback to a report. You can also use it with master data management, so adjusting values or combining values into one category, for example. And you can also enter budget data into your Power App and combine that with sales data from your data warehouse, for example. There are a few more use cases in the bottom link. So the Power Platform Integrations Forum at the Power BI community. All sorts of blog posts and examples that people have used and have written about to use multiple products of the Power Platform together. And I have the walkthroughs, as I mentioned earlier. They're on my blog and on the Power BI community blog, I believe. And as was asked earlier, please provide feedback. You can do it with the URL and link mentioned here. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. If you have any questions, then please let me know.
Yes, Nick, there are a couple of questions in the virtual things. Is there any way for Power Apps to know which Power BI report it's embedded in?
Inside the Power App, then, is the question, I think. That's not possible, as far as I know.
Okay, and the other one was, can you give yourself a textual score real quick? But I think that was more for the demo.
All right, to see if that's what it does, yeah.
Yeah. Or I think the word write 10, and spell it T-E-N.
All right. Oh, it says that it saved it here, but that's not according to flow, I think. Let's check real quick. Yeah, and they both failed. Well, the first one's obvious, but the second one, I think also. Yeah, it says input string was not in the correct format. So I'm trying to convert the word 10 to a value, right? So that's not going to work in in Power Apps and later on. So the score here is actually empty because the Power App tried to convert the word 10 to a number, and that didn't work. So. Any more questions?
Yeah, Nick, there is one more question. In a streaming data flow, can you predefine the data, or can you
drop downs or value limits?
Yeah, with drop downs or value limits, can that be defined?
Not in the Power BI service, no. You will have to do that in the front end then. So in either in Power Apps or what front end that you're using. You can define in the Power BI streaming data set what you want to have entered there. So a list of values, for example, or that sort of things. That's not possible. No.
In the Power App, by the sound of things.
In the Power itself, then yes.
Yes, yeah, in the Power.
Yeah, so you will have to create a drop down here, for example, with a list of values, and that should be possible.
Good. Then you need to connect your Power App to a second data set.
So I think, by the sound of things, you need to create a drop down in there, which will send the data to the Automate. I don't think you can define a preset in the data flow. Is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, okay. That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Nicky. And
thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference, I should say. At last. Okay.
Sorry for the confusion. You were a room stop at the last minute.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you.